Can there be anarchy in cinema?
It's a tricky question. There should be anarchy in the aesthetics of the films, but if you try to have a production based on anarchy, well, good luck.
Do you mean the production means, or do you mean the aesthetic means, or which means?
Well, let's say that me and you are going to make a film together. If I try to have a business plan, wow, what a ugly word that I just said, and you are going to try to be anarchistic about it, one of us is getting way poorer, and the other one is getting very pissed. So it depends if what you are doing is, I mean, what you want to do and say ultimately with the films. I mean, I think that films can and should help to question the status quo and the existing power relationships. I mean, this is why we go to the cinemas, I think, because we are not satisfied as human beings. We look for ways to change the given conditions in which we live. And this is okay because we are film critics, we are film theory, we study these things, and so we discuss about it. But in terms of how you make a film, industry-wise, and so on, well,
we have to move. I don't know. It's not very anarchic, but apparently we're not.
No, I don't move. I'm totally anarchistic, and I don't move. I don't care about the. No, I'm joking.
Apparently, we're not sitting right.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the light or something.
Yeah. And so yes, I mean, I guess that making a film needs to be very precise, very organized. And it's better if there's not anarchy involved in the process of making a film. But if the film is about anarchistic themes, I mean, it's a bit of a contradiction, because if you try to shoot a film in a very anarchistic way, you might end up like 7 years only for the principal photography, and good night to that. I mean, so yes, I mean.
Thank you, Alexandra. We've just watched 2 films, Airtime and Searching for Oscar. Can you tell us a little bit about your impressions? Do you think that Searching for Oscar has something anarchic about it?
Yes, very much. I think it's anarchic on different levels. I think the person of Oscar as such has a very anarchic approach to what he's doing as a film critic, because the film of the field of cinema is a very structured film. Most of the time, the way a film is made, the regime of the narrative, it's a narrative film, the way it's distributed, the way festivals are laid out, have press conferences, etc., etc. This is all very regulated by certain means. And the way that Oscar approaches this and uses it to his own means, I think is a very anarchist quality to it. I also like the idea that thinking about cinema, people have often talked about, because it came about with modernity, like at the end of the 19th century, that cinema is a place where people go places. It's mobilizing your gaze, you're kind of going on journeys, you go about things. And I think the way Oscar is using this, the cinema without even watching a film, is very interesting, because he uses the festival circuit to go places, to travel around, to even buy underwear in Chicago without even ever watching a film. So basically the escapist a moment that cinema might have for people, he's using it in a different way, just by attending this festival. So I think this is a very interesting, funny moves he's doing, or press conferences. The way he talks about the poster as the only mean to be objective about talking about a film, I think is a very interesting approach to a certain degree. So this is on an content level, I think is a very anarchistic approach. In terms of the formal aesthetics of the film, I think there are little clues he gives us, Octavio gives us in his film. For example, there is one poster which says irony and brevidad, and I was told this is called shortness. So I think the way he's cutting the film in these little, short montage sequences appeals a very ironic, laconical way. So even though after a while we get this very kind of deep biographical story, about the wife who died and Oscar having to leave Argentina. At the same time, the way it's told, it has this kind of tragic, comical aspect to it because it's very short. It never goes into this lengthy depth to develop long emotions. So I think these are also little means to have an iconic, ironic way of telling a story. So yes, I think it's both anarchic and ironic at the same time.
Octavio, can you tell us a little bit about how you found this tone? What Alexandra was just talking about, especially the way you do the editing, how you find this laconic and this sad humor. How did you find the tone of the film?
La película ha tenido como muchas fases.
The film had a lot of phases.
Hubo un año que estuve filmando a Oscar y no hay ningún material en la película sobre Oscar, en el montaje final, por ejemplo, ¿no? Ese primer año solamente estábamos documentándonos, estábamos conociendo a Oscar.
For example, there was 1 year when I was filming Oscar, and this year did not end up in the final version of the movie. It was just, getting to know each other.
Estuvimos como en 4 o 5 festivales antes que prácticamente no han salido.
And we went to 3 or 4 festivals that didn't end up in the movie.
Y fue en el Caribe, en el primer festival donde plantamos por primera vez la cámara con el trípode, porque antes estábamos grabando con varias cámaras, cámara al hombro, y nos dimos cuenta que ese plano expresaba muchísimo. Cuando parábamos y solamente captábamos un momento de la realidad con Oscar, tenía una expresión muy fuerte, y a partir de ahí empezamos a dirigir la película en ese sentido.
And at first we tried with different types of cameras, but then when we shot in the Caribbean, we used the tripod and this one camera, and then we saw that this camera was the best way to express what we wanted to express.
Luego la película se ha ido escribiendo en rodaje y en montaje. Ha sido un ir y venir.
And after that we shot and cut and shot and cut in this succession.
Al principio grabábamos mucho, no teníamos unas líneas claras, sino que todas las posibilidades podían ser.
At first we shot a lot and we didn't choose.
Y a medida que iba pasando el tiempo, pues como un embudo se iba estrechando la historia.
And with time, like a bottleneck, it became narrower and narrower.
So it could have been a 4-hour-long movie?
Quizás se la dirigiera a otra persona.
Maybe for somebody else, about somebody else, directed to somebody else.
A mí también me gusta ver películas en las que pueda llevar al espectador a un universo. Y creo que ahí es muy importante el ritmo, el tiempo, para no despistar, ¿no? Para concentrar al espectador en ese viaje.
I like to take the viewer by the hand and show him into my universe and give him a certain tone, a certain world to go into, and that's what I like to do.
Seguramente hay algunas películas que puedan durar 4 horas, pero yo creo que esta historia está en estos tiempos, en los tiempos que hemos con el material que yo he tenido.
So I'm sure there could be movies of 4 hours long, but the movie I wanted to tell is this one, and with the material I had, I couldn't have done a longer movie.
We invited Giona and Alexandra not for nothing. We had some ideas in mind. Giona, you're a critic and you're a festival programmer. You're the head of the Critics Week of Venice Film Festival. How much did you recognize your profession and your routines in searching for Oscar?
Oh, not at all. Not at all, because...
do you watch movies or what?
I guess I'm a way less interesting character than Oscar, because I watch movies all the time. And as far as I can remember, I always love to watch movies. And even when I work, these very intensive stretches of times, weeks, months, where you watch intensively movies because you have to put together a program. When it comes down at 10 o'clock in the evening and I have to take a break, I grab a sandwich and I watch an Italian cheap horror film, an Italian cheap sex comedy, or I don't know. I mean, movies are my life. So I really like watching films. As far as I can remember, I always thought that I wanted to live in a place like this, where I can see what's on the screen all the time. And the only part of Octavio's film I could relate is how he embraces his alienation. That means the way he feels at home in this parallel spaces, in the hotel corridors, in the airports, and he's always a stranger. This is a part of my job that I love very much. I'm not one of these guys that only at home, only in the country and where's nature and stuff. I really like the inauthenticity of postmodern life and this kind of parallel spaces where you have at last some time to spend, because if you are waiting for a connection flight, you just have to wait, and that's cool. If I'm at home, I cannot afford the same luxury to wait because I have to do something with my time. But in an airport, I can wait. In a hotel, I have to wait for the pickup. This is cool. I can read. So this is the part of Octavio's film that I find very interesting, because it's a science fiction film on a very realistic basis, because the way he flashes out all these possibilities of alternative spaces is actually the real interesting thing. Because when we are in festivals, especially those in other continents and stuff, we wait through these weeks of films and meetings and talks in a kind of stupor. So we are always a bit hangover, tired, but still at least I'm talking from my point of view, eager to meet people, to exchange experiences, and then we are brought to one place to another, and it feels like, I love film festivals. Even today, when a film festival is over, I always feel this tiny sting of death, like, shit, it's over. I'm not ready yet. I don't want to leave yet, Whereas I see colleagues that say, oh, God, finally, it's over. And my reaction is, why did you come in the first place?
Alexandra, do you love festivals? Do you love festivals as much as Giona does?
Yes, I do, but I have to admit that I did recognize myself in the character of Oscar, if not in that radical manifestation that he's living his festival life. But if you take as a film critic, if you take writing a film review as the product which you have to deliver once you're there, because if a newspaper sends you to a festival, they expect you to write home reports, critics, reportages, whatever kind of text you need to produce. And so this film for me is almost like a film, like similar to a film about filmmaking. This is a film about, in my sense, or in my view, about writing a text, which Oscar obviously never does because he doesn't even watch the films. And he's in the status of film critic. Like, obviously he is one of these privileged people who went to festivals for entire life, and they still have the privileges of being invited and stay there for free and don't have to deliver anything. But most of the people do have to deliver, because if they don't get another accreditation for the next year. So you have to show the festival that you worked there. And so what I see in this film, and this is quite comical, I think, is the production, is so to speak, how the making of the text comes about. For example, going to press conference, I mentioned this before, can end up to be the most ridiculous events you've ever attended. People asking questions you cannot imagine people would ask questions to. So the way Oscar asked the question about the poster is, of course, even the most absurd you can do, but sometimes you even have more absurd questions in press conference than this one. So I like the way how the kind of absurdities which with film festivals come about are kind of put to another extreme. Or, the typical conversations at this kind of gatherings of film critics when you talk about the opening film. Have you seen the opening film? Yes, you have. No, you don't. And then, I heard it's bad. No, it's really good. And, as many people you talk to, as many different opinions you have, and then there's this formation of a discourse. This is supposedly the good film in the cinephile community. This is supposedly the good film in the more mainstream community. So the way, the buzz of a film comes about, probably with the most absurd background information, I think it's very accurately depicted in here. And not to mention about being drowsy in the morning if you go to Cannes and after 5 hours of sleep and you have to get in line for an hour. Hopefully you get a seat. And then I can remember watching Haneke's L'Amour, and I sat there. The person next to me slept when I took a seat, and still slept when I left the seat. So I think a lot of people sleep during film screenings all the time. So I think the way Oscar kind of makes this problem into his own virtue, I think has a quite anarchic effect to it. So, yeah.
Do you want to add something?
Yes, I wanted to add something, because if we speak about film critics who do write from the festivals, this is another issue, because there's a particular level of stress. Yeah. Not here in Berlin, fortunately, because
yes, here in Berlin.
Really? I mean,
yes.
Berlin is incredibly cozy in terms of writing, press conferences.
Might depend who you write for and what you're expecting.
Yes, of course. But when Alexandra mentioned the press conferences, okay, and sometimes you have to do that. As a writer, as a film critic writer, okay, I find it always challenging to turn the most banal and stupid questions into something that it's eventually worth reading. And I've been at certain press conferences. I wanted to shoot myself because I couldn't believe how some colleagues were totally unaware of the stupidity of the questions, but you cannot stand up and say, hey, this is stupid. But then this is what the material that you have. It's this 20 minutes and you didn't get to ask your question because these people are so eager to ask theirs that they shoot up like that and they get inevitably picked by the moderator. And so once you have your notes and you try to write a piece, I find it interesting in terms of a personal challenge. How do you write something that eventually is reading worth from such cheap stuff? And this, as an intellectual exercise, can be quite fun if you don't allow it to be frustrating.
Yeah, I agree.
Octavio, we heard two terms I think that are quite important for the viewing of your film, which is inauthenticity. So the fact that it is not authentic, that the festival experience has something that is very much a mise en scène, that it is made for cameras, made for writing about it. So it's very conscious of its means, and I think you found an exquisite way to show this, to show the fact that these places are really there for us to see them. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you went about filming these places that want to be filmed.
Yo creo que la idea de rodar en los festivales en nuestra película la que queríamos hacer está como muy de fondo también. Muy en una capa que es...
It's like the background, the idea to...
Es un marco, ¿no?
To include the festivals in this documentary was to have it as a background.
Lógicamente es a lo que se dedica, ¿no, Oscar? Pero realmente nosotros queríamos hacer una película donde se hablara en unos términos mucho más amplios de una sociedad, ¿no? De una sociedad global.
But we wanted to make a movie about something much wider, about a society and about like a global community.
Realmente hay muchos Oscar en los festivales, muchísimos.
There are many Oscars on the festivals.
Y hay otra gente que es súper profesional y muy buenos críticos.
And there are lots of other people who are very good professionals and very good critics.
Pero también hay médicos, también hay fontaneros, hay muchas profesiones también y todas tienen las posibilidades de caminar como camina Oscar, ¿no? Es decir, no es un problema del cine, es un problema mucho más amplio, es un problema de sistema.
And I don't want to say that this is only something about critics or film critics or the movie industry. It's you have all these professions. You have them. There's always the possibility to go about life like Oscar does, in all the professions.
La pregunta sería qué ocurre cuando alguien sabe tocar las teclas del sistema, ¿no? Por una parte, ideológicamente estar en contra, pero por otra parte, aprovecharse.
And I wanted to show someone who knows how to play the system, and he despises the system on the one hand, and he knows how to get his advantages out of it on the other.
Y yo antes de hacer la película también había recorrido muchos festivales con mi anterior película y con otros trabajos que habíamos hecho. Y sí que hay esa parte de adrenalina que tienen los festivales, en donde hay una semana de un nuevo mundo, de un submundo donde conoce gente nueva, es una especie de burbuja.
It's like a bubble. Before I did this movie, I toured the festivals with other movies, and there's this 1 week where you're submerged in the bubble, and that's an experience I had before making this movie too.
Pero luego es tremendamente depresivo cuando vuelves a la realidad, ¿no? Es decir, son trocitos. Y ahí sí que percibí muchas veces ese falso pose que ves en los festivales y que luego no los ves en la vida real.
So you have a lot of adrenaline that's going through your system during the festivals, but then when you come back, you are sort of depressed, and that's something that
Todos
I
hemos
wanted
ido
to show.
a las fiestas, ¿no? A veces, ¿no? La gente quiere hacer contactos, quiere de alguna forma posicionarse, y todo el mundo se ha construido una especie de personaje porque están trabajando.
And it's in a way it's an act that we put on. It's false in a way. You talk to people. You have a special way of talking to people, and you have to sell yourself, and you adapt this persona on the festivals. But it's not necessarily yourself.
Y yo creo que Oscar se ha construido un traje, ¿no? Una buena coraza para digamos hacer frente, ¿no? a su vida.
And Oscar has his suit, and he's wearing his suit in order to be this person on the festivals.
I think one of the great strengths of the film is that you have both elements of this facade of the festivals, and and with your character of Oscar, with your protagonist, you have someone who knows how to play the game, as you said, but also it's a very humane portrait of him, because you're not, you really like to look at the festivals with him and through his eyes, and with his anarchic quality and with his perspective on those festivals. Okay. Maybe since we saw two films, you can give us a little bit of your impression about airtime. How do you think the irony and the anarchy play in airtime?
Well, if you want, irony is the most refined form of anarchy, because anarchy can also be a way of living according by your own rule, and especially with different perception principle. And what is fun about airtime, and it's a completely absurdist film about the spaces that we emptied through the omnipresence of images. So we have images everywhere, but there's nothing left to see, which is a very interesting, ironic concept, but it's also very anarchistic in terms of how can we use the image to show something that isn't there anymore. So it's a film made of anti-images. So in this way, in this sense, it's quite an interesting anarchistic film. But again, as in Octavio's film, airtime manages to create this alternative space where there's still a possibility to meet and to have, why not, un otro mundo posible, you know? So yes, I thought it was quite fun to watch. I mean, I have a very weird sense of humor, and airtime, I find it really extremely fun, and not especially because of the two guys, because the two guys, they're quite scary, because it shows you how democracy, where is everything said and done, it's still this scary structure that allows things to function. They vote themselves in, they do things, but there's no one there. So it's almost, you know, kind of how democracy can shift into something completely different. But the fun part of the film is those empty images where nothing happens, and you have to figure out, what do I do with these things? And that, I thought it was perversely ironic and anarchistic.
Octavio, can you give us a little bit of your insights into airtime?
Yo creo que tenía también, percibí algo que se parecía también a Oscar, ¿no? A la película, quiero decir.
I saw something that reminded me of Oscar, of the movie Oscar.
Sí. Hablar sin gente, ¿no? Me pareció también muy parecido a escribir sin ver películas, ¿no? O sea...
Me pareció, I thought that was quite similar, actually, because the same thing that happens in Oscar happens in airtime.
What do you mean? What happens?
Bueno, la impresión que tuve fue que la propuesta sí que se acercaba un poco a la propuesta de lo que no existe, o lo que de alguna manera se puede, la puesta en escena de algo que es muy surrealista y que no sé, que no llega a tener, tiene una objetividad, pero que no llega a, no sé, muy surrealista. Yo te diría que me pareció muy surrealista.
I thought it was very surreal the way it was described in both movies.
That was a very short translation. So maybe it was a sign. I think there are questions and comments in the audience. I already saw 2, 3. So where do we start? Right in the middle, maybe. Can you bring the microphone to Katrin?
Dankeschön. Hallo. Ich habe eine ganz wichtige, also die erste Frage, die ich, the first question I had is, had Oscar seen the film before today? And then where is he now? And then where I would like to buy his books and read his texts. Actually, I was really curious about what he might have written. The time before he started just to write about the placards. I would be interested.
Are you able to understand Spanish?
No, un poco.
Because unfortunately the books, I mean you know more about it, but
yes.
I tried to get some books, and unfortunately the books are only available in Spanish, and the one I read from, the one I quoted from early on about the anarchic cinema is unfortunately out of print completely. But maybe you can tell us a little bit more and tell us about Oscar watching the movie.
Vale, creo entenderte que preguntó la primera pregunta si había visto la película, ¿no?
Sí, antes de hoy.
Okay. Sí.
Yeah, yes, he has seen the film before today.
¿Y dónde está Oscar? No lo sé.
Where is Oscar? I have no idea.
Oh, he's in the back. He's sitting in the back now.
Okay.
He moved away. As he said before, he thinks the film exists better without him, so unless he decides to join in the conversation, we won't force him.
Sobre los libros, yo creo que si hay alguien que quiera traducir el libro de Oscar en Alemania, seguro que va a tener mucho éxito.
I think if we can find a translator for his books, then they will have a lot of success.
No cerremos la puerta a eso, ¿no? Porque hablen en otro idioma.
So that shouldn't.
Pero creo que está solo en español. Sí.
But I think the books are only available in Spanish.
Lo último que ha editado sale en la película, que es una antología de sus cuentos, de cuentos que él ha escrito en 50 años. Toda la recopilación que ha tenido de sus anteriores libros.
And what we just saw in the movie was an anthology of short stories that he wrote in a span of 50 years.
So there are two other...
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate any irony in any art or in life. And I thought maybe that your film would be going in the direction of a cynical, but didn't, and that makes the film really much more entertaining. And I just would like to know why this end, because there is a little bit of a sadness on the end. It's minimal, but there is some sort of a sadness there. Muchas gracias por este conto surrealista.
Bueno, la película navega entre la comedia y el drama.
It's a mixture between comedy and a drama.
Y yo creo que una gran parte de la filmación y sobre todo del descubrimiento del guión quizás fue la época más dura que ha vivido Oscar en los últimos años.
And just the time where we wrote the script and we sort of talked about the movie was a very difficult time in Oscar's life.
Realmente yo lo veo como hay una parte triste pero hay otra parte de esperanza, ¿no? Porque Oscar pone punto y final a una etapa.
There's sadness, but there's also hope. And Oscar is just finishing one phase of his life.
Como la puso en Argentina.
Just as he did before in Argentina.
Y ahora está en otra fase, ¿no? En otra.
He's moved on.
And there's another comment here, Eugenio.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say that I'm a little bit sad because of this film. I found myself looking at Oscar a little bit like when I see Andy Kaufman on the screen, on the TV, meaning that you always ask yourself, is it really good at what he's doing? Is it really doing something like a performance. Can he sing? Can he not dance? I'm doing boxing. And well, Oscar is a little bit like that, and I guess that the problem is that when you're a film critic, you cannot at some point think that you have some criteria to say that the film is good, the film not good. But ultimately, maybe those criteria are totally balloony, and probably we use it just to build ourselves a profession. And this is something that at some point I felt that, and that actually all this thing of being a professional critic is just a way to to entertain yourself, to have some power. So in a way, I think that this is a real anarchist film, and but it's also a very powerful film. If you are a film critic and you say that, you cannot be the same after, I guess. So thank you.
Can you tell us about how you view critics now that you've made this film?
Repeat.
How do you view critics now that you've seen the film?
Yo, o sea, igual que
The same.
Porque yo ya he hecho este recorrido, quiero decir, no es como el caso de él que ahora ha tenido un impacto.
Because I made these experiences already. It's not that I've just seen it and now I'm not the same person than before.
Lo que me interesa a mí a la hora de rodar o de editar o de sacar una obra adelante es que al final se genere algo en el espectador que lo construya él. O sea, ya ha dejado de ser mi película, ¿no? Es decir, ahora es la tuya. Entonces, lo más interesante para mí es que cada persona haga sus propias conclusiones. Es posible que te haya impactado no por la propia película, sino por tu devenir, por tu camino, ¿no? Y yo creo que las películas tienen que, por lo menos, intentar llegar a que uno no solamente se entretenga, ¿no? sino que cuando vuelva a casa o cuando se despierte por la mañana, pues tenga un pensamiento de algo que ha visto y que la ha podido hacer cambiar. Eso a mí me parece que eso es lo más poderoso que tiene el cine.
What interests me when I make movies is that I want to change something in the viewer. So what you just said is really very nice, because that's what I actually want. It's not my movie anymore. As soon as I finish it, it belongs to the people who watch the movie, and maybe they don't watch it for enjoyment only, but maybe when they look into the mirror in the morning, and they will have a little thought that came from this movie, and then that's something I actually want to do, to achieve.
Y es paradójico que en un festival todo el mundo entre como llama Oscar, a la caverna, ¿no? A ver películas, y él tenga la decisión contraria de decir, no, yo voy a pasear, voy a vivir, voy a lo que no hace de alguna manera en su día a día, ¿no? O sea, eso no quiere decir que Oscar no vea películas. Es decir, él ve muchas películas, muchísimas películas. Él podría dar lecciones a todos de filmografías, ¿no? Pero los festivales son un momento para tal vez vivir, ¿no? Para vivir la experiencia.
It's a paradox because on the one hand, Oscar says that people in the festivals, like they go into these caves, and he says that he doesn't go into the cave to watch movies. He wants to live life and go outside and see what's going on outside. And it's not that Oscar doesn't watch any movies. He could give you a lecture on movies anytime, and he does watch a lot of movies. It's just his festival persona that doesn't watch movies.
Are there any other comments or questions in the audience? Yes, there is one here. Wait for the microphone, please. Thank you.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. I think it's a great movie because until now I don't know if this was a mockumentary or a documentary. It could be a great setup if you told me that this guy is an actor. I don't know what to believe. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one last question for you, and then we should wrap up. The question is, how can we bring more anarchy into film festivals and film criticism?
No, see, you addressed exactly the wrong aspect, because if you want to bring more anarchy into the film festival, you shouldn't say kill the critics. You should say kill the money people. I mean, the film critics are those that are underpaid. The film critics are those that are struggling, writing for a blog, traveling mostly at their own expenses and so on. Why would you kill a critic?
Wait, there's a microphone, please.
They like Lumpenproletariat. They defend the idea that this structure, this big structure on festival, has something to do with C movies. They defend the idea that there is people that are entitled to say this is good and this is not good because some criteria. What are these criteria? That I saw a lot of movies before. This is not even something that you can defend. Maybe it's because I saw a lot of movies before, I cannot see something new. So
but now we are talking about something. I know what you're saying, but I mean those people, I don't consider them film critics. You know, because we are talking about the people trumpeting the
90% of the journalists.
Not at the same time, please.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. What's this anarchy? A bit order, come on.
Chaos is not the only kind of anarchy.
90% of the people that have accreditation at the Berlinale, they don't know anything about cinema. They just go there and then they saw movies. They think that they are important. They don't even see the movies. They talk about what they read in the press.
We totally agree on that. We totally agree on that. But then we should find another way to identify those people, because if you say film critics, I mean, I feel a huge debt of how can I say, gratitude towards film critics, because film critics taught me something about morality, of the filmmaking, of the image, of how socialize a film and stuff. The people that we are talking about, they call themselves film critics, but they are simply the how can I say, the guys that herald the existing economic structures of the film festival. They are those that say that everything is cool and everything is fine, but I don't call them film critics. They are just the guys that are happy to dive into the free buffet at the festivals.
Well, I mean, that's like politicians. They call themselves politicians.
Okay, so I mean, so we agree on that. I mean, because what you say, just to explain. I've seen here at the Berlinale a great documentary. It's called the SPK complex, the SPK complex, about this very interesting experience of not even anti-psychiatry, but anyway, this collective of mentally challenged people that try to organize themselves in an anti-capitalistic complex. And I mean, this is still something relevant to me, and I think that if we could experience film criticism in a really creative way of sharing the films, the places, the economic structures that allow film to exist, of course, then we wouldn't need critics anymore, because we would share the structure of production that make film possible. But this is like still utopia. I mean, this is still a utopia that I have very dear to me, these kind of things. And stepping a bit back, I mean, the problem with the festivals today is there is too much official politics involved, and I have seen this happening because I've been involved in one way or another in festivals over many years. And once you have politics, and there's this great expression of soft money that no one sees, but it's there, that serves to grant and fund stuff, and then obviously this soft money gives direction where this money goes and how things are shaped, and you can see how festivals over the year change identities. So yes, this is a problem, and we should really try to figure out how and why money and politics impact in such a significant way on our passion, which is sharing movies, watch them, discuss them, and so on. And but yes, I mean, those people that yes.
Thank you, Giona. Alexandra wanted to add something. Can you pass the microphone?
I want to defend film criticism, at least to a certain degree. I think serious film criticism, which takes time and space to write about a film, to think through images and to find another, to give something extra to what the images tell you by thinking about it and writing it down for a potential readership. I think this is something, if it's done seriously, in a serious manner, which is very valuable. And I think film criticism is so much under attack right now, because everybody, you have this thumbs up and down thing. You can tweet, film is good, film is bad. Sometimes big companies don't even want to show the films anymore to film critics because they don't matter anyway. We have this big advertisement machine. Everybody wants to see the new such and so film, regardless if you as a film critic say it's not a good film, spare your money, go somewhere else. So I think to say they are all frauds and we hate film critics, this is something which happens anyway, because film critics is like a dying profession almost. It's like dinosaurs, people who still try to care about it and to keep it in the papers or in a place where it's taken seriously. So I think we should rather, be careful with them rather than dissing them even more.
Octavio?
Yo creo que el Oscar para nada critica, o sea, la actitud de Oscar no va referido a los críticos estudiosos, a los críticos que pasan muchos años haciendo tesis, que son capaces de descifrar códigos en las películas que tienen que ver con el psicoanálisis o que tienen que ver con las profundidades, ¿no? de los pensamientos o del propio lenguaje. Yo creo que Oscar o esta película no ha pretendido en ningún momento poner en duda a los estudiosos del cine.
I think Oscar never wanted to actually criticize critics. Serious critics, movie critics who actually are looking for images and what you just described, and who somehow intellectualize, but in a positive way, what the movie means to them. So he never was doubting their professionalism.
Yo creo que hablamos más bien de los críticos que escriben reseñas en los periódicos.
Well, I think we are more talking about critics that are just putting putting a small text in just any newspaper.
Que pueden calificar la película a través de estrellitas, ¿no? O de
The ones that give stars, 1 star, 5 stars, etc.
y eso sí que detrás de eso siempre hay un marketing, una publicidad o un medio de comunicación.
And there's always some kind of marketing or some kind of structure behind that kind of criticism.
Para mí, los grandes críticos muchas veces no trabajan en los grandes medios, trabajan en medios más independientes, ¿no?
And for me, the good critics sometimes don't even work for the big media, for the big newspapers, but for some kind of independent platforms.
Te los puedes encontrar en la universidad, en las escuelas,
and they are maybe at university
en la formación.
Or in some kind of school.
I guess that one of the main issues is that a part of film criticism has become a part of the advertising structure, as Alexandra pointed out. That means that the good critics, as seen from the point of view of the decision maker and of the money people and so on, are the yes men, those that go with the flow every time, and those are more the majority of people. And if you dare to say something that sticks out, you are immediately ostracized, like he's a troublemaker. We don't. So the real problem is that film criticism, as such, also in the newspaper, which is a very noble thing to do, to write about films in newspapers, it doesn't produce any point of views, it doesn't produce any intellectual thought, it's just the affirmation of what already exists. It's the creation of this absolute, that's the only thing that exists, and you have to celebrate what exists all the time. This is why I think that festivals, in a way, even the very big machines, still have some spark of possible resistance, because even in a big machine like the Berlinale, you might find some sparks of things that could reactivate the whole process. Of course, we're talking about minorities here. We're talking about people who do films with less money, no stars, and so on. But still, this is still cinema, and someone has to talk about these things. It's not only about the big machines and the big Hollywood gossips.
Just a final thing I'd like to say. In film, like in the reduction or the Redaktion, sagt man das so? Like
at the editors.
Yes, in the editors. For big newspapers, for example, if a film critic retires, people tend to not replace them, but take someone who is like a all-rounder. That's the new hot shit. Everybody has to be all-rounder. So you're supposed to write about anything which is related to culture, and expertise is more and more nothing which people really value. It's like everybody can write about a film if he's somehow connected to culture. Everybody can write about blah and blah. And I find that, because you said before, film critics don't know more than other people, which is probably true to a certain extent, but if you really devote yourself to watching a lot of films, it gives you a different approaches if you watch a film once a year. And I think expertise is nothing we have to be ashamed of. Because if I want to go to the theater, I have no idea about theater, I want to read a piece by someone who goes to the theater a lot, who can tell me this is a better production because it does this and that, which another production doesn't do, etc., etc. And I think the tendency today is to kind of level this out. You know, you don't want someone who's devoted to this or to that, because you want to have someone who is cheap for you and who can write about anything. And I'm not sure if this is a good way to talk about culture in this sense. And I think especially film tend to be, you know, it's like football. Everybody can write about film, really. They take, like one of my bosses once said to me, I can ask anybody on the street to write a film review. You know, basically you're lucky that it's you and not someone else. And I was thinking, well, I don't think so. You know, maybe you know what I mean? So it's something which is really a very sensitive thing to talk about.
No, I do totally agree with that.
It's a big topic.
Yeah.
It's a big topic, and we're not done. But because Giona just talked about the sparks of resistance and the Berlinale, all of you who are not done talking feel very welcome to join us at Anarchy Bar right around the corner, Krausnickstraße, where we will discuss about the future of Berlin Film Festival and try to have some sparks of resistance with some drinks in our hands. So thank you very much. Thank you, Octavio. Thank you, Monster Control District.
Gracias.
Thank you for both your films. And see you later or tomorrow.
Get sensitive when you want to kill them.